Good morning, everybody. SF Live, episode 49. My name is Kai Hoffman. I'm the CEO of the Soar Financial Group. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'll be joined here in a second by Paul Westsells. He's the president and CEO of Western Copper and Gold. He's up in the Yukon, and he's in his downtown office in Vancouver right now. But before we switch over to Paul, be reminded, use hashtag AskWRN for your questions. WRN is the ticker of the company on the TSX and on the OTCQB. Paul, just nod real quick if I got it. Nope. NYSE market, the big market. Okay, sorry, I should have looked that one up. But most companies are dual listed on the OTCQB or QX. Really great to have him on in a second. Make sure to ask your questions. This is an interactive format. We will switch over to Paul right now. And Paul is in Vancouver. He's in his office. Paul, how are you doing? How have the last few weeks been for you?
I'm doing very, very well. Thanks for having me on, Kai. It's been an exciting couple of weeks. We closed a $4.5 million financing. We launched our drill program. We had the crew went up last Friday, and the plan is for the drills to be turning tomorrow morning. So it's an exciting time for Western Copper and Gold and our shareholders.
Interesting. Okay, so you're starting working tomorrow, but like Yukon, does Yukon still have the quarantine in place that even if you come out of province or territory, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks?
That's correct. Yeah. So anybody coming from outside the Yukon needs to quarantine for 2 weeks. So what we've done and we sort of were lucky in that our drilling contractor and a number of our geologists were already based in the Yukon. So we've gone with a made in Yukon solution for the drilling program as much as possible. So I think we had maybe two people that we had to bring in and do the 14-day quarantine to go up into site, but everybody else is based in the Yukon. So yeah, it's a bit nerve-wracking because we're having to manage it from here, and we can't sort of just zip up there if something goes wrong. But the Yukon has also informed us that they plan on lifting that quarantine July 1st. So really, we've just got a couple of weeks of getting the drills up and running, and then we'll be able to go up there and double check that everything's going smoothly.
How fierce is the competition for local drillers right now?
It's funny you asked that, actually, because I was on a call with a bunch of other Yukon explorers, and they sort of said, well, our drilling campaign is starting at this time because that's when Western is going to be finished with the drilling contractor, so that's when we're starting. So we got in there early, which was great, and I think that's and we've got a great team, and so we're lucky from that perspective.
Okay, but it still sounds like there's a lot of competition up there. Let's just assume you hit something and the market gets super excited and you can raise more money and you want to drill more. You might not have access to drillers. You might have to wait till somebody else is done.
Yeah, I mean, the lifting of the quarantine July 1st, I think, is going to be key because then it opens up British Columbia, because the plan is actually just to open up with British Columbia on the 14-day quarantine, and obviously there's lots of drillers in BC. Let's be honest. So
yeah, that's true. We'll see a lot of it. We're curious to see what the activity is going to look like this summer with whole restrictions in place, and companies are financed though, and you raised money, $4.5 million flow through, $2 million hard. Where's the money coming from? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, where's the interest from?
Yeah. So I mean, we're very lucky. We've got a really good set of shareholders. So starting with the $4.5 million of flow through, if you look at that, about half of that money came from our existing shareholders that we've got really, really good long-term relationship with. And then the other half, there was a lot of interest. I'll be honest, that flow through financing was at least oversubscribed by double. I mean, I could have made it twice as big. A lot of interest out of Europe. Europe has always been a great market for us. And back in past life, you and I have gone around Europe before. So we had good interest out of Europe. The hard dollars was actually, well, he's now on the board. So Michael Vitton, who's well known in the mining circles, based out of New York, was sort of head of U.S. mining sales for BMO for a number of years, and so he actually took that whole hard dollar placement and came onto our board last week when we had our AGM, and so we're certainly excited to have him on the board and have him his shoulder behind us as we move forward as well.
Okay, before we dive into the exploration program, we're going to talk about that. You brought up the board, and I want to stay on that for a second as well, because your chairman is a bit of age. Dale Corman, great guy. I met him a couple times, but
Yep.
you freshened up the board. In your own words, you said you freshened up the board. You added a couple new board members. Michael Vitale is one of them, but you added a couple members as well. What's the strategy behind that?
Yeah, I mean, so we brought on Mike Vuitton this year. Last year, we actually brought on two new board members. So we brought on Ken Williamson, and we also brought on Tara Christie, who's based in the Yukon. Yeah, so I mean, I think I mean, it's always important to freshen a board. It's important to get new voices in. We've got a lot of pretty big voices. I mean, Ken Williamson was on the board of Gold Corp, to put it into perspective. So we've got some pretty powerful voices, some great ideas there, and we'll see. It's sort of, I mean, it's literally been a year, and Mike, it's been on for a week, so we'll see where things go. But I'm pretty excited about at least the initial direction, which is just go. I think everyone is with the new board is really excited about the project, really excited about the exploration potential, and just wants to move the project forward as fast as possible.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the exploration part. What are you spending the flow through
Perfect.
money on? How many meters? What's the plan?
Right. So I mean, so the plan for this year is around a $3.5 million program. So if it's on time and on budget, we'll still have money left next year. But the program this year is 12,500 meters of the drilling that we're going to do. And if you look at where that money is going to go, about 1/3 of that money is going to go to the high-grade gold intercepts that we found last year. And then there's a bit that's going on our northern porphyry, which was a new porphyry that we found at the end and as part of our drilling campaign last year. And then there's also a portion that's going to go onto the Canadian Creek. And Canadian Creek was the project that we acquired last year near the end of the year. And really, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to put any new drill holes into it. So we're excited to be able to do some drilling there as well.
Okay. So my first reaction was when I saw you're drilling again, is like, why? Okay. You already got roughly 18 million ounces of gold, 10 billion pounds of copper. What's the strategy of the drilling? Of course, it's always nice to put out some drill holes that show some nice high grade, perhaps, but and to get the market excited. But like, what's the overall strategy behind that?
Sure. So there's sort of two parts, and let's talk first about the high grade gold. So I mean, last year we hit an intercept of 55 grams per ton. Over 3 meters. This was the third time that we'd hit this really high-grade gold. And so we'd hit, over 50 grams per ton before, and we hit a 70 gram per ton intercept. So we had these sort of 3 very, very high-grade intercepts now. And we looked at these. Geologically, they're all very similar. They're all associated with bismuth. They're all in the south of the deposit. And so we're starting to see a trend there. And we needed to go back and drill that out for a couple of reasons. First of all, obviously, if you're getting those sort of grades, if you can string that all together, that becomes an absolute game changer for the project. We talked a little bit beforehand. This is a great project, but it's a big project, has a big price tag. If we can get enough of this high-grade gold put into the resource, then we can start to look at a starter project where we start off with just processing the gold. Maybe it's a gold heap leach, maybe it's a small mill, and then we roll into the larger project. So that's really the driver for the additional drilling. The second thing is that, I mean, Casino, I mean, like you said, I mean, you've got over 1 billion tons, you've got 18 million ounces of gold, 10 billion pounds of copper. Isn't it big enough? And it's big, but is it, BHP, Rio Tinto big? Maybe you're right on the edge of that. And so what we've found now is we have the Casino porphyry. To the north of us, we have this northern porphyry, which we've just ticked the edge of. So this is a separate porphyry. We also have a porphyry target on Canadian Creek, which we haven't drilled out yet. So this is another porphyry. So we've gone from a great copper gold porphyry deposit to really a district that we have control of. And so we need to at least understand the district potential that we have there. And that necessitates additional drilling as well. So, I mean, certainly, since we published the feasibility study, this has been by far the most exciting year. for Western and its shareholders, just because the potential is so high, and we've gone from having a great deposit to really having a great district, and with huge exploration upside.
Yeah. When did you put out the feasibility study again? I think 2018, right?
2013.
13.
So
Okay.
yeah, so it is
Had that.
dated. So I mean, so the plan is to take the drilling that we do this year and a little bit next year and roll that into an updated feasibility study that will certainly kick off next year. And really, it depends on how successful we are with our exploration this year. I mean, if we begin to string together a huge gold zone, then we'll have to continue drilling that out and delineating that before we go into a feasibility study.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, feasibility study will be a huge game changer, actually, if you can highlight that. But there are also other opportunities, and you used the word district quite a few times.
Yeah.
Obviously, you are in a very prospective district. There's coffee, there's white gold around, and I asked you. I have to admit, I asked you this beforehand as well, but I got the idea of asking this question from Rubicon, actually, because they were exploring buying Red Lake from Detour, I think, and they had the financial backing, although they're a smaller company. Gold Corp. Sorry. Gold Corp. Thanks. Too many names, too many stories lately to follow up. Like, seriously, like I'm a dog chasing its tail. But so that's where I got the idea for the question. Like, are you in a position, or would you even consider buying a coffee to make yourself more attractive and maybe build a starter operation based on that?
Yeah, I mean, whether we buy it or there's some arrangement or, there's some sort of business transaction there. I mean, it certainly is interesting. We know the Newmont people well. There are next door neighbors up there, so everyone knows everyone well. But it's very interesting because if you look at coffee, what is coffee? So coffee it's a great little gold heap leach project. The challenge is it's little for Newmont. So, I think it's got around 3 or 4 million ounces of gold in the reserve. So it's really not Newmont size, right? But if you put that together with Casino, you now get a really interesting looking project because you have the heap leach from coffee, you have the heap leach material from Casino. You now have a very nice sized heap leach. You start with that. And then once that is sort of, you're part of the way through that, then you look at the porphyry potential at Casino, which is your billion tons, sort of copper gold and molybdenum concentrate. But you can also process the deeper ore at Coffee, which is all sulfidic. And right now, there's no plan on processing that, but that's the potential there. So that's just from the processing. You can share road, you share power, you share all this infrastructure, all those sort of things. So that's just with those two. Then of course with white gold. I mean, white gold. Sean Ryan is a fixture in the Yukon. He's great success, and I think they've done a really good job there putting together really a greenfield exploration company to look exactly where we are completely around. I mean, if you look at the map that we have, I mean, you can see they have us surrounded, which is perfect because they're doing all the regional exploration right in that area. It's an area that has over 25 million ounces of gold and various resources undeveloped. Where else do you have that in a tier one companies or country such as Canada? I mean, it's an incredibly exciting district.
No, you're absolutely right. And the government also pledged some money actually for building, they call it the Casino Road, all the way up to Casino and then further to Coffee and then all the way to Dawson, if I'm mistaken, based on the map, right? So what kind of Capex impact would that have and would make it more likely to actually go ahead with a mine build?
Yeah, so I mean, so the road there's sort of two roads. There's one that goes up to Casino from the south, and then there's one that comes down south from Dawson into the Coffee project. The roads are at different stages of development and agreements with First Nations and all of those sort of things. I'm pleased to say that our road in the south is the more advanced. That for the first part of the road, they have an agreement with the First Nations. I've been told again and again by the Yukon government that they're going to be breaking ground this year on that. So I said, well, make sure you send me some pictures, and I'll be tweeting them out. Yeah, and it's a very, very simple road in that southern route, and because it's being built to support a fairly good size concentrator at Casino, this is a 2-lane gravel road, a really good road. So certainly that road makes the most sense for both actually casino and coffee. Coffee might look to go north initially, but that's it's a much more modest road. And in terms of the development of that, it's earlier than where we are in our road. So again, some synergies where they could use our road, and then maybe look at.
And I think coffee would have to cross the Yukon as well at one point, right?
Yeah, no, it's again, it was a bit more of a small junior mining company approach. They crossed the Yukon, they crossed the Stewart. These are big rivers. They were using barges and ice bridges and things like that. Whereas our road is just a road. 365 days a year, fairly straightforward. No big bridges, no tunnels, just simple road.
Cool. This sounds all very great. Like, you got 18 million ounces of gold, you got 10 million pounds of copper. Things are seem to be going the right direction, but for some reason your market cap's sitting at $120 million Canadian. There's a huge discrepancy with what it should be worth or could be worth and what the market values it at. Like, where do you see the disconnect? Like, why is the market giving you such a discount in comparison to other, like, even optionality plays?
Yeah, I mean, that's your opportunity, I think, if you're an investor. I think there's a couple of reasons. I think one is that is great. Porphyries, copper gold porphyries being a particular example of that, tend to be large, but they're low grade. Doesn't mean when you add up all the numbers that they don't add up. And then the other one is the high capital cost. So that certainly I think, scares people away. But, when I look towards the future and you look towards, what makes sense in terms of both the copper market and the gold market. And so on the copper market, there's just not a lot of economic, good jurisdiction, clear path through permitting copper projects. And, copper has been trying to break out for 3 years now, and it's still at 260. And so I think that, when we get past this COVID situation, when people start to say, well, where's the next copper mine going to be built, we're at the top of that list. And I think you're going to see the market sort of recover on the back of that. And the other one is on gold and large gold. We now have 2 relatively recently minted large gold companies with Newmont and Barrick. They need to be looking at deposits that are 5 or 10 million ounces of reserve, or 20 million ounces of overall resource. Where are you going to find that? And we're one of the, we're a top 10 gold resource just with the gold. So I think that as those become part of the dialogue, you're going to see our market cap begin to reflect where the gold ounces are.
No, that's a good answer to that question. And we talked about high Capex, and we sort of touched on very many points in regard to, like, how to mitigate that Capex, let's call it risk, because it's financial risk. With your market cap for 100 million US or 130 Canadian roughly, you won't build this at this time. Like, it's just not financeable, right? So let's be more specific. Like, we talked about it in very broad terms, like a new feasibility study might mitigate that, drill success. But let's be more specific on how you might be finding avenues to go that route and actually come up with a mine and casino.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, let's look at the history of projects of this size. I mean, they move forward in 2 ways, 3 ways. One is that they sometimes are self-financed. So, we update the feasibility study, we get this project permitted. My argument is that with this fully permitted in a bit better copper, the gold market's great, but in a bit better copper market, we're not going to be 100 million market cap. We're going to be well north of that, and then we can look at financing and building it on our own. So that's certainly an option. The other one is that we just sell it outright, so that's always a possibility. And then the third is that we set up some sort of joint venture, and we bring in a partner to sort of help us move it forward and build it. So those are, obviously option one is that's where we are right now. But we're always, always talking to a number of people, and always interested in that, and whether that ends up in a sale or a transaction where they come in as a partner to help facilitate moving it forward remains to be seen. But and those are side conversations. I mean, our focus this year really is just go and define this gold, define this now district in terms of all these various copper opportunities we have, and look to update that feasibility study. And this is all stuff that we can self-finance and do on our own very easily.
Okay. Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, like how likely do you rate a possibility of the whole district being consolidated by? And my favorite on that part is actually Agnico, because they're already in white gold. Personally, like Kinross might do it. Newmont, I doubt will do it. But like, how likely on a scale of 1 to 10 do you see that happening in the next, let's say, 18 months or even 24 if you want to spin it out?
Yeah, I mean, I know better than give timelines in this industry, but I mean, one of the things that I say is let's flash forward to coffee being a mine and casino being a mine, and why would those be two separate companies? I mean, it makes a lot of sense as we've talked about to consolidate that. White Gold is got a great business model. Their business model is really find things, and once they develop to a certain level, they can get spun off. But they're your exploration arm of, the Yukon junior mining world out there, right? So you don't really want to disrupt that. But there's certainly, I think, a good potential for some smart consolidation in the area. Everyone knows everybody up there. We're all talking with everyone. So yeah, I hesitate to give you a number from 1 to 10, but it's greater than 5 anyhow. Let's just say that.
That's perfect. That's that's a passing grade. Like that's not too bad. Over 50%. Great.
Yeah.
Paul, like we're hitting our time limit again. Like when always we could start talking, I could go on and go on and on and on. But let's sum up Western Copper Gold for us. What should investors look out for the next 3 months, 6 months, maybe 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously drill results, and the absolute first thing we're doing is looking at that high grade gold zone. So as we hit good results there, those will get reported. So that's one thing to look out for. The other thing to look out for is, I think, particularly on our Canadian Creek acquisition. I mean, there are targets there that are undrilled. And, we're putting in some deep holes in there. And I mean, again, you find a whole other copper gold porphyry over there. This project goes from being a good sized project to being, as I said, a district of opportunity. So that's certainly what I'm looking for as a big investor in the company myself. And then, at the end of that, look for us to launch a feasibility study. I'm hoping that, I mean, if it isn't end of this year, it'll be first part of next year. And, hopefully what that feasibility sort of is going to say is it is going to likely have some sort of starting project that's around the gold, and then it'll have the main big copper gold porphyry project as sort of a phase 2. And so a 2-phase sort of development of the overall district at this point in time. So
fantastic. Yeah. Now you just need to change your name to Western Gold and Copper. So.
It's come up. Yeah, it's come up.
Fantastic. Paul, thanks so much for answering all my questions. Really appreciate you coming on, and please stay safe. Everybody else, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Please follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Make sure you turn on the alert button and the notifications. That way you get informed whenever we go live with another update. Thanks so much for tuning in. And Paul, hope to see you for a glass of red wine very soon downtown.
Yes. Hi. It's always a pleasure. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.